Good afternoon, Year 6, and happy Tuesday. Hopefully you've had a good start to the day and are really looking forward to continuing with our diary entries. I was really impressed with your work yesterday, whether you wrote as Con or Fred, and some of you even managed to write as Leela, which was great to see. So I'm looking forward to continuing our entries today. Now, before we do, I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to look at some examples of exceptional work together. Then we're going to look at some examples of work that we can improve, because we know that responding to feedback makes our writing even better. So let me do that now. Hopefully now you will all see my PowerPoint, and the first example that I want to draw to your attention is Rudy's fantastic work. Rudy began with a really informal style. In a really informal style. He said, "I'm writing to you in the most unusual of places," and then he included the phrase, "and hear me out on this." That's something that we would say in conversation to our friends, so he's really adopted that informal, chatty style. Well done, Rudy. And he then continued by using repetition to just emphasize how alone he was. So he said, "I'm by myself, completely isolated, completely alone." And that was really effective because it reminded me of Con, and it was really in keeping with Con's character. We know she's quite dramatic. She thinks, despite the fact that there aren't other children around her, she wants to be dramatic about the fact that she's all alone and no one is here to help her. He then continued with the use of some really effective rhetorical questions when he began to explain what had happened to the diary. So he said, "What happened? What happened, you say? I'll tell you. Comfy?" I really like that additional bit of humour too, Rudy, and some really effective word choices. He's called the pilot deluded, which, as we discussed yesterday, is in keeping with Con's personality. We know she wasn't particularly complimentary about the pilot. In fact, she was scathing about the fact she'd even fallen from the sky in the first place, and she was blaming everybody but herself, even though it wasn't her fault, but she was looking for people to blame. So it's no surprise that she refers to the pilot as deluded. One thing that can happen when we write in the diary entries, and I'm really pleased that I can share this in Rudy's piece with you because I know lots of children will benefit from this feedback. Because a diary entry is a really chatty conversational style, sometimes it can be easy to forget our punctuation. So I'm going to have a look at this bit here. I'm going to read it out to you, and I want you to think where we would need to include some punctuation here. "I'm now questioning if I should go to sleep. Let's face it, I haven't drank water in hours, and I haven't eaten in a day. I'm probably not gonna tomorrow." Have a think. Where does the punctuation need to go? Yes, you're correct. After sleep. I'm now questioning if I should go to sleep. So if I should go to sleep is a subordinating clause which joins to the main clause. Therefore, that sentence by itself is a full stop. So is a full sentence. So you can put a full stop after sleep, or you can put a semicolon to join the next clause. Let's face it, I haven't drank water in hours, or haven't eaten in a day. Or you could use a conjunction. I'm now questioning if I should go to sleep because, let's face it, I haven't drank water in hours or haven't eaten in a day. Full stop. And then you would say, I'm probably not gonna tomorrow either, as a separate sentence. So I'd really like everyone to pay attention to their punctuation today. If you're adding a subordinating clause to a main clause, then that's where the sentence ends, unless you're joining it with a semicolon or a conjunction. Okay, so really keep your eyes out for that. Now, moving on to our second example. This was Alea's. Alea, I really loved that you included so many original ideas, and I could see that it was really different from the model, which was great. This opening sentence was really effective. You said to the diary, "At least have someone to talk to who doesn't argue, speak, or boss me around." I really like that, Alea. A diary is someone you can talk to and they don't answer back, which is why they're often a great thing to have. Again, she said, "Right now I'm in Fred world. Original ideas and you can see her character coming through. And again here, Alea, I love that. I love that you use some details from the book. I was in a rusty 6-seater plane that an old and soldiery pilot, well, that's what they say about him, wasn't suitable to fly. And again, you've effective use of parentheses as well. Just be really careful that you are conveying the tone of your character, because if you are Fred, if you're writing as Fred, then he probably wouldn't be disrespectful about the pilot. Remember, he was the person who tried to help the pilot stay alive when it looked like the plane was about to crash. Now, let's have a look at why I have greened the word "you're" there. Have a think. Why have I put green highlighter through the word "you're"? Yes, you're right, because it should be the contracted version. Well, you're probably asking could be said as, well, you are probably asking, therefore you need to use the contracted version, which is YOU''RE. And we've already touched on this. I spoke about this earlier. If you are writing as Fred, perhaps you can let me know on Seesaw who you chose to write as. If you are writing as Fred, then be very careful with your language choices, because Fred probably wouldn't say, well, yeah, this pilot obviously wasn't suitable to fly the plane. That's probably something that Con would say, I think. Now, Abra, I really wanted to share this piece because you actually took on board some of the additional ideas that I said in yesterday's lesson. They weren't in the model, but you would have heard me speaking about them. So I'm really impressed by how carefully you were listening. And also, Abra, even though I've highlighted bits in green, I was thrilled to see that when I logged back onto Seesaw, you had corrected each of these points, and that was really, really impressive. I've shared this because I know lots of us can benefit from reading through and learning from this mistake too. Let's have a look at why I've greened what I've greened. So, dear diary, I can't believe I'm writing in you, or I can believe, I think you meant can't, I'm writing in you. That should be a full stop there, because I can't believe I'm writing in you makes sense by itself. A full stop or a semicolon. Don't expect that dear diary nonsense, because it not happening. Let's see why this one is green. I'm going to read it out. I was on a mini plane when all of a sudden the odd pilot decided it fine to stop flying the plane. What kind of pilot is he? It's all my parents' fault. I'm going to go down to this one, the final one in green. I hope he glad about the described he made. I think you maybe meant disaster there. Have a look at those points in green that I've just made. What is the common error? Yes, well done. She has forgotten to pluralize its in many cases and forgotten her S. So let's read it back. Sometimes it's hard to hear those, but usually it would never be it not happening. It's either it's not happening or it was not happening, depending on the tense. So try and remember that, even if you struggle to hear the S. So don't expect that dear diary nonsense, because it's not happening. So IT''S there. The odd pilot decided it is fine to stop flying the plane. Well, no, because she's writing the diary after the plane's crashed. So it would have to be it was fine to stop flying the plane. So that would read the odd pilot decided it was fine to stop flying the plane, because that should be in the past tense. It all my parents' fault. Well, she's still blaming her parents now, so you would say it is all my parents' fault, because right now that's her feeling. She still thinks it is her parents' fault, so that's in the present tense. And I hope he glad, I hope he was glad, or I hope he is glad. I hope he's glad about the damage he's caused. Perhaps you could change that too. Now, I know at the beginning of yesterday's lesson, we practiced our homophones, including there, and there, and your, and your. Perhaps you can tell me why I have highlighted this there in yellow. What is not correct about it? What should it be? Excellent. It should be there, spelled TERRE, E-I-R, because it indicates possession. Their hometown is the town that belongs to them. Thank you, Abra, for allowing us to share that piece, and I'm looking forward to seeing your work today. Now, finally, I've shared an entry that is grammatically correct. There are no punctuation errors, and there are no spelling errors, and there are no past tense errors. And this is almost the hardest piece of, these are the hardest pieces of work to improve. So I'm going to read it out to you, and I want you to have a think. Why have I shared this piece of work? Hi diary, it's me, Fred. I fell out of a plane like 10 minutes ago, after it started to rain and it went solid and felt like tar. Then I found 2 other people from the plane crash, but we didn't find the other people. Have a think. Why have I shared this entry? Yes, this entry is, and I know we've talked a lot about it in Sheffield class, this entry is a little bit stilted, and it's one basic sentence after the other. The purpose of a diary entry is to convey your thoughts and your feelings and tell your diary just how you're feeling and just what you're thinking at that time. And that might include describing what you're seeing or hearing around you. And in Con and Fred's case, perhaps how much pain they're in, and perhaps maybe even articulating to the diary, even explaining to them how much they're fearing for their life. And this piece here lacks that description. Okay, from reading this piece, I can't necessarily tell that it's definitely Fred. It could be anybody. So we need to see some more details from the book coming through in our writing. Okay, so I like that you've managed to keep it all grammatically correct. Well done. But let's hear a bit more about the 2 people from the plane crash. One was a blonde girl and she wouldn't stop telling me what to do. The other was a screaming baby. I really hope I get out of here soon, otherwise it's all going to be too much to handle. So you've said you fell out of a plane. Give the diary a little bit more information. How did that happen? Because that's quite a shocking event. The way you've written this diary makes it seem like falling out of a plane is just a normal event that happens every day. Hi diary, it's me, Fred. You'll never guess what's just happened. Yes, I'm serious. My parents put me on a plane this morning and I've literally just fallen out of it. Well, how did it happen, you might ask? And then tell me about the pilot. He began to belch violently and you tried to save his life, but it wasn't possible. Use the details from the book to supplement your diary entry. So I'd really like this child to have another go and blow me away with their improvements. Now, let's move on to today's writing. We have managed to survive, despite Con's fears. You have managed to survive another day in the Amazon rainforest. And you're opening up, or you've managed to survive the night. Con was convinced that we were going to die. She said, statistically speaking, we're going to die. But we're going to imagine we've just woken up in the heart of the rainforest. And we're going to articulate, we're going to speak to our diary again, we're going to grab hold of it and tell them exactly how we're thinking and we're feeling. If you're Fred, things might be looking up a bit. You might start feeling a little bit optimistic. If you're Con, you're probably still furious and fearing for your life. And then we're going to imagine that we've heard a sound or a sight that's aroused concern. That means it's caused us to feel a little bit worried. Perhaps it's footprints. Perhaps it's a rustling bush. You remember in Francis, there was a knocking, but it's not likely that you would hear knocking in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. Maybe it's a bow and arrow with a little bit of blood on it. What could be a little bit of what might be that sight or sound that causes you to feel a little bit concerned all of a sudden? Now, as you'll remember as well in Francis, we built up the tension little by little by little. So at this point, we wouldn't be seeing a person or a creature. It's only a small hint to the reader, because if you give hints and hide the threat, that helps to build up the tension little by little. So just imagine we've woken up in the Amazon Rainforest at midday, or if you want, you might decide you've woken up at 5 a.m. because the screaming from baby Max has meant you weren't able to get any sleep. And then we're going to begin our next diary entry. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my visualizer now, and we are going to continue. So you can see that at the top there I've written midday, and that's because I've chosen to write from midday. But as I said to you, you might choose to write from 5 a.m. in the morning, depending on what time you were woken up. And you'll recall that yesterday I wrote as Con, so I'm going to continue to write as Con today, otherwise it might get a little bit confusing. And the purpose of today's paragraph is really to continue to convey, to show how Con is feeling as she attempts to survive, really. And we want to make sure that's really clear throughout our writing. So some steps that I'm going to be including. So how she feels the next morning when she's woken up. As I said to you, I anticipate that Con will still be pretty furious. I don't think she'll be feeling any more optimistic about her chances of survival. And she'll probably be complaining about Max or the pain she's in. So I'm definitely going to let my diary know that. What's happened in her day so far? So that's where we're going to give the little hint of threat. I'm going to put that in brackets. That's the reason why she has went to her diary. You're giving that little hint of a threat, and then we might reassure, she might, as you know, with Con, she's very confident. I don't think deep down she thinks that much will beat her, but I think she will try to reassure herself, because even though she's going around saying, statistically speaking, we're going to die, I think she is a little bit she is genuinely concerned of that happening, or about that happening. So we'll want to reassure, she'll want to try and reassure herself by chatting to the diary at the end. Now I'm going to start off then with how I'm feeling. So again, I'm going to start off really informal. So I'm going to say, I survived. Thank goodness. In fact, I can't use a semicolon there because thank goodness doesn't make sense by itself. So I would say, I survived. Thank goodness. Really dramatic opening, just in, exactly as you can imagine Con, or just like you can imagine Con. A really dramatic opening, sorry, I'm getting my words mumbled, and you can imagine Con saying that. I survived. Thank goodness. But, I'd almost rather be dead, I'm going to say. I'd nearly rather be dead. Or you could start off by saying, this place is the worst. I'm back again. No, I didn't even manage a wink of sleep. So how she feels first thing when she wakes up in the morning. She's clearly not impressed. Thank goodness she survived, but that was almost too good to be true. It sounded positive, and then straight away she's went negative, in keeping with her personality. She's been negative throughout the book, so I want to maintain that really negative, sarcastic tone. I survived, thank goodness, but I'd nearly rather be dead. My body, I'm going to explain why I'd nearly rather be dead then. I'm going to talk a bit more about how I'm feeling, and I really want to use details from the book here so that it's realistic. I'm not just going to say, oh, I have a headache and a sick stomach, because that's not the kind of, that wouldn't be what I would, that probably wouldn't be the worst injury I would have if I'd just fallen from a tree. So I'm going to say, my body is practically screaming out in pain. Using some personification there. Screaming out in pain. And my scratches and bruises, also drawing on some detail from the book, and my scratches and bruises look even worse, and I'm actually going to underline the word even for emphasis, look even worse than before. Now, I do remember something in the book about Fred saying that things would get better in the morning. I didn't believe him at the time, and I certainly don't believe him now, so I'm going to say, Fred said, past tense, Fred said things would get better in the morning. Things would get better in the morning. Full stop. And I'm going to add in a short sarcastic sentence for dramatic effect there. Yeah, right. So in that first paragraph, I really want to see that detail from the book. How is she feeling? What is causing her pain? Perhaps she'll also talk about Max screaming, and that screaming meant she couldn't even get a wink of sleep. Or maybe you'll mention that ants were crawling all over her body, or she's cuts and she's bleeding from, branches and trees, sharp branches digging into her. So let's read it back and make sure I come across as Con. I survived, thank goodness, but I'd nearly rather be dead. My body, I'm going to say my whole body, really emphasize. My whole body is practically screaming out in pain, and my scratches and bruises look even worse than before. Fred said things would get better in the morning. Yeah, right. Great. Let's continue then. What's happened that's made her go to the diary? Because as we alluded to yesterday, she's not one to usually write in a diary. She thinks she's a little bit too old for that and a little bit too mature for that. So what's made her go to the diary again? Okay, so why have I returned? So point number 2, I'm just going to put a star here so you can see I'm on to my next part. Anyway, nice informal link to the previous paragraph. Anyway, the reason that I'm here, I'm using my contractions because it's an informal piece of writing, is now I'm going to introduce the threat. What can I say that she's seen that made her concerned? I think I'm going to go for a footprint, but of course it's up to you. I'm going to go for a footprint in the soil perhaps, and that's been enough to make her go to her diary. And at this point, I want to show that she is a little bit nervous, so I'm going to use some speech, and also I'm going to really carefully choose my punctuation too, to show that she's stuttering at times. Anyway, the reason that I'm here is ... Well, I'm going to put a full stop there because I guess she doesn't want to tell the diary straight away. I want to get the impression across that she's almost toying with the idea of not sharing with the diary. Well, full stop. I think ... I think I saw a footprint. I saw a footprint in the soil. Be harder to see a footprint in the leaves, really. Let me read back and check if that works. A diary is a conversational tone, so it should be able to work too when you speak it out loud. Anyway, the reason that I'm here is, well, I think I saw a footprint in the soil. Not that and now I'm remembering. She's given a little hint of a threat, but I'm remembering just how confident she is and how desperate she is not to be scared. So I'm going to say, not that I'm scared or anything. Not that I'm scared or anything. Full stop. It's a short phrase for effect. It's just weird, right? It's just weird. Right? And I'm going to use a rhetorical question there to show her slight concern. Okay, so I've added in a little bit of a hint. In fact, maybe to make this a bit more suspenseful, instead of saying footprint, I'd change that to something. An empty word, because I think I've actually given away too much too quickly. And then here, I might put, let me read it back, because then I'll say a footprint. Anyway, the reason I'm here as well, oh, sorry, I didn't pause, so that didn't make sense. Anyway, the reason that I'm here is, well, I think I saw something in the soil. Full stop. It looked like a footprint. It looked like a footprint. Semicolon. I'm almost sure. Or you could say, though I can't be sure. Maybe it would be better to say, actually, though I can't be sure at this moment. It looked like a football. I'm almost, not football. It looked like a footprint. Though I'm not sure, or though I can't be sure. Not that I'm scared or anything. It's just weird, right? And the footprint at this point, I'm not going to give too much away. It could be a person, it could be an animal, but it's something that causes her to feel a little bit unnerved anyway. Okay, and on to my final step then. Well, I know she doesn't want to be seen to be the one who's panicking, even though she wants to come across as the person who's really confident, who's saying, we're going to die, it's your fault. She doesn't want to seem too vulnerable or helpless. Okay, so she always tries to put on a brave face. So the third point then is I'm going to try and reassure myself in the same way that Frances did when she heard the knocking. So I'm going to make it flow on again. I'm not going to try to make sure I'm not starting with I'm all the time. And I'm going to say nice and formal, adverbial, never mind. But remember, if you're using never mind, you either put a full stop or dash. Probably a dash would be more effective. Never mind. I'm probably just hallucinating, I'm going to say. I'm going to blame it on the pilot again, I think. I'm probably just hallucinating. Seeing things. Hallucinating. From a severe, means really serious, I'm going to underline that, severe case of concussion. From a severe case of concussion, after being dropped from the sky. Again, Con's coming across really dramatic. We know this is something she's likely to say. I've got a severe case of concussion because how badly she thought she was injured. From a severe case of concussion after being dropped from the sky. Dropped from the sky only yesterday. Dropped from the sky only yesterday. And then you could say at the end, you might add, told you about that one, didn't I, diary? Or don't get me started on that pilot again. Something really sassy to end it with. From a severe case of concussion after being, left out a word there, dropped from the sky only yesterday. And then you might finish it off by saying goodbye to the diary. I don't want to say anyway. Again, I'm not going to use never mind again, but you might say something for now, I'll just forget about it. Or you might say you're off to sleep because you didn't manage to get any last night, or you're going to try sleeping again. It's up to you how you end it. You can end it at that point, because she's almost reassured herself that the concern is gone or that it's not a thing. She's telling herself, I've been hallucinating, so therefore I don't think it's anything. It must be me. Right, let's read back our second entry then, where we've been really trying to build up the tension. I survived, thank goodness, but I'd nearly rather be dead. My whole body is practically screaming out in pain, and my scratches and bruises look even worse than before. Fred said things would get better in the morning. Yeah, right. Or you could say, liar. Anyway, the reason that I'm here is, well, I think I saw something in the soil. It looked like a footprint. I'm almost sure. Not that I'm scared or anything. It's just weird, right? Never mind. I'm probably just hallucinating from a severe case of concussion after being dropped from the sky only yesterday. Heard about that one, didn't you? Or don't get me started on that pilot again. And that will complete today's diary entry. Okay, one thing to look out for when you are introducing the threat and you are introducing more punctuation, please be very, very careful not to overuse commas. and make sure you are splitting up those main clauses with a full stop. You can use those little one or two word phrases, but these short phrases do need to often be separated using full stops as well after them. Okay, great work with yesterday's pieces team. I'm really excited to see what you come up with today. We almost had every single child upload an entry yesterday. Let's see if we can have some more original ideas today that deviate from the model and use ideas from the book too. Can't wait to read them, Year 6. Have a great rest of the day. See you later.